Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien here on the morning of Friday, April 22nd, 2022. Oh, yeah, Earth Day. Yoo-hoo! Here. Doing a special commentary today, and today's commentary is entitled The 330th Anniversary of Salem's Witch Trials. The start of the demise of the USA. And everything that you got today started there. And I'll explain that in a second. Well, Americans, here we are in 2022, February 1692 till March 1693 was the Salem Witch Trials. And how did that start? Well, it had a lot of different things. But it had everything that we got today. Republicans and Democrats, extreme right and extreme left, everything that we have today started right there in that little town. Especially like here in Florida, where you got a crazy governor and crazy Disney. And this entitles, it starts back to the Salem witch trials. Why are you trying to eliminate what's in the past? Oh, it's racist. You're going to tell you, the Sleeping Beauty should be thrown out. This guy should be thrown out for being racist. This program should be thrown out for this. And we should have indoctrinated our employees in this and that and the other. Why should you indoctrinate your employees? They work for you. They're trying to earn a living, not be indoctrinated in policies or beliefs or views. And that goes for anybody in this country, okay? And you have to keep your views to yourself because they are yours, not everybody else's. I see things differently than you do. And I tell you about it, but I don't try to convert you to them. I just tell you so you can make a decision. Okay, can you see what I see? If you can, good luck. If you can't, well, you're going to end up where you are. And I'll end up where I am because there's stuff that I can't see that eventually you'll get me. And somebody else will come by and say, oh, you missed that. Yoo-hoo! And this is what happened in the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials was about views and points of view and who had the upper hand. Just like you have here, Republicans and Democrats, governor of Florida, and Disney. Extremist left and extremist right. And what happened to us in the center? Well, that's what happened to the people in Salem. The center, people in the center, nobody cared. And you had two families that controlled the events of the time. The Putmans and the Porters. And one strange new reverend that they got from the West Indies. Samuel Parris. Yes. And his daughter, niece, and, slave, I guess you would call her at the time. Tituba. Tituba. And was she African or was she Indian? Some accounts say she was African, some accounts say she was Indian. Well, in portrayals that I've seen, they portrayed her as African American. So we'll make that she came from Africa. And what happened? Well, remember, this is the 1690s. Okay, Europe, the witchcraft hunting was just about on its waning legs over there in Europe about this time. And over here in America, you had the Puritans, which controlled the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which was established in 1630. Now, the Puritans, you could advise them as Trump, Trump people, Trump people, Trump people. That's the Puritans. America first, yoo-hoo! Yeah. But then you had the other side of the coin, which was the leftist socialist Democrats. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they didn't like the Puritans' way of doing things in Salem, both Salem town and Salem village, which today is called Danvers, okay? Massachusetts. So here comes our new Reverend Samuel Parris and his three ladies, daughter, niece, and slave. Although they called her a indentured servant. I believe that's what they referred to her as. But she was actually a slave. They came from the West Indies, and by the way, he wasn't a reverend. He got ordained because they couldn't make money that way. But he wasn't a reverend in the sense of a reverend. And he caused a lot of problems. And remember, in those days, Tibia, or Titubia, I can't pronounce her name right, used to bring stuff, and in the West Indies, they had a lot of stuff, like LSD and other stuff in those days that you didn't know about here, but they caused a lot of hallucinations and herbs that she was probably aware of. And, well, her and the two girls of Mr. Parris were a threesome ready for trouble. So when they got to Salem with the Puritan way of looking at things, you got a fly in the ointment here, and it's going to cost you trouble. Well, it did. There was hysteria, as they call it at the time, and it's referred to as hysteria. Yeah. And, well, the girls got into hysteria, like at the time they call it, they were possessed by you-know-who. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, and I believe that the Paris girl and the other girl, Good, which was the niece, knew how to manipulate people over there, and so did Tibia. Well, Tibia was probably the better of the three because she saved her neck towards the end, and you'll see what I mean when I get there. But the other two manipulated the Putmans and the Porters because they knew there was Republicans and Democrats, extreme right, extreme left, and you name it, they were it. The Putmans and the Porters. They hated each other's guts, and they wanted to annihilate each other. Okay. Unbeknownst to the powers that be at Boston, that manipulated the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Okay. Because remember, this is the 1690s, just after the glorious revolution of 1688, and the new powers that be, William and Mary, they came in 1689 after Catholic James II got disposed in 1688 under the glorious revolution. This is what started all of this, okay? The Puritans were there, and they didn't like the fact that the Anglican Church was like the Catholic Church. We don't want any of this other stuff in here where you got to have confessional and Eucharist. And, that tastes terrible. You ever had that wafer, by the way? And I'm Catholic. Yoo-hoo! How many of you like that wafer? Yeah, okay. Well, that's what happened here. It was a conversion of all these things. These girls said, oh, I got possessed and I was a witch, and they started naming names. Well, at the end of this mess, it resulted in 200 people getting arrested, 19 deaths, 5 other people died in jail, and one person, his last name was Corey. Well, he got pressed into service, and he died being pressed, and I'll get to him in a second. Now, Miss Good, which was the niece, and Miss Parris, the daughter of the Reverend, started naming people around town, and they named people that were kind of strange, that didn't conform to Puritan ways. Tells you how much they looked at the people, and those three girls knew that town inside and out and how to play it. Okay? And they got people dead, and it didn't concern them. Well, it did concern Tubia. Because she realized, oh, hey, look at what's going to happen here. Let's see. If I tell the truth, I get myself killed. Yeah. Isn't this the American way? You can't tell the truth because you get yourself killed. If I confess to being guilty, I get a slap on the wrist. And isn't that what the Democrats are pulling for now with all their legislation that they're pulling people out of jail, and a lot of crimes is going on? Because, hey, if you confess to something, even though you know you didn't do it, you get yourself a slap on the wrist. If you fight it to say, I'm as innocent as hell, you go down in flames. Flames, yeah, right, with the witch trial here. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, nobody got burned at the stake, okay? In 1692, there was hangings, and this one guy got pressed. And what I mean by pressed is Mr. Corey. He didn't admit that he was guilty. If he would have admitted he was guilty, he would have got a slap on the wrist and a way home. The only one that knew about this was Tubia, because she said, okay, wait a second. If I admit I'm guilty, I get a slap on the wrist and away I go, and nobody ever arrests me or charge me with anything. If I say I'm innocent, I get charged and hung or pressed in. Yeah, okay. So Mr. Corey said, no, I'm innocent. So they put a little flat board on top and started piling up the rocks on top of him. They pressed him to death. And these were little boulders. I mean, can you imagine? They got a whole bunch of those in there. He had over a ton by the time they were done with that. That really crushed his rib cage into his lungs, and yeah, okay. And like I said, there was 19 people died, 5 men and 14 women. Tubia didn't get anything. She didn't even get a slap on the wrist. She just says, okay, and nobody knows what happened to her later. She just left with Mr. Paris and his daughter. And another 5 people, which I don't tell you in the story, died in jail. And all this because of the 3 girls manufacturing these things and taking advantage of the narrative that was in town, extreme here and extreme right, extreme left. Is this what you want for your society, Americans? Really? What happened in Salem? Had nothing to do with witches, but it had everything to do with your point of view, your extremism, and 3 girls that took advantage of it and created havoc. 24 people died, actually 25 if you count Mr. Corey with the pressing. Nobody got convicted for this kind of judgment. And even to this day, there's a question on the Massachusetts legislature that they should absorb everybody of their crimes, which they should do, for their descendants' sake, because nobody had anything wrong there. The wrong was in the minister, Samuel Paris, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and Mr. Cotton Mather, oh boy, him and his dad, which had another interesting name, I forget what it is, it runs through, but Cotton Mather was the linchpin of this mess. And along with those 3 girls with the match, and this is what's happening to your United States right now. Look at the governor of Florida and Disney, the Republicans and Democrats. It's the same thing as the Porters and the Putmans, and Paris and the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. So until you sit down and look at yourselves, Americans, you started in Salem and you're going to end up with Joseph B. Biden's administration policies driving you to extinction. This is your favorite alien commentary for today. Hello, Salem's Witch Trials, 330th and last year. Goodbye.